Carrie Adams, and you're listening to Carrie's Connoisseurs, coming to you from Solid Gold Podcasts. Here we talk to the movers and shakers, the drinkers, the dreamers, and all the people who make it happen in the liquor and luxury industries from around the world. And for those of you who do not live under a liquor industry rock and who might not know who Tim is, he is the top potato of DGB. And for those of you who don't know what DGB stands for, it stands for Douglas Green Bellingham, which we don't really say anymore. But Tim, welcome to Carrie's Connoisseurs. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here.
Well, we did have a little bit of a... You've got to tell Julia she's not allowed to crash around in the back because otherwise we're interviewing Julia as well.
No, but, we've even told the builders next door to stop banging walls for an hour, so you're safe.
Or should we tell everybody that we spent the last 10 minutes? I'm deeply impressed, Timothy. You got onto this Riverside link. This Riverside link, I have no idea. If it wasn't for the Kennedy boys, I wouldn't be able to do this job. So I'm extremely impressed that you managed to get yourself sorted out with this.
I'm a bit better around a wine bottle than I am around video links.
Me too. And we are getting old, so we're not supposed to admit that on national or international YouTube or whatever, but we are, hey?
Exactly.
Tim, I was trying to remember the first time that I met you, but I think I was 34 when I first met you, when I came back from living in England and I went to work. I worked for Anglo first. And
I remember that, yeah.
I met you when I went to work with Solly, and we did have some huge fun times, some amazing times, and it's been such a happy thought. I spent most of last night. I think I've got cholera. You know me, I don't just get a runny tummy, I get cholera.
Yeah.
So I think I've had cholera this week, and I was stayed up most of the night thinking about our interview today. And we did have a huge amount more fun then than we do have now. Do you think that's true, or do you think we've just got too old to have fun? What do you think?
No, I think the industry's got a little more corporate. Certainly in our business, we drive very aggressively. That, if you're not enjoying it, find something else to do. But I mean, I spent this week with our different spirit and wine marketing teams going through brand plans, and then yesterday linking it to the international guys. And I think in the wine industry, they all love what they do. It's getting tougher. You can just see the costs, power outages. Let's not get onto all the negatives, but there is a lot of pressure on the industry. But certainly in our business, we've got this passion to grow premium and grow the business globally, and the guys are having a lot of fun. I've had a team at Vinexpo in Singapore the last 2 weeks. And they've been working markets, the Philippines, China, etc. And while South Africa's not shooting lights out there, they're planting the seeds, and that's got to be part of the future.
I know. Well, you've always been a bit of a trailblazer, actually, when it comes to getting South Africa out there. I think that you're one of the biggest exporters to the States still. You win awards all over the world. And that's, in fact, why I got hold of you in the first place, because I keep on seeing things come on this computer of mine that says DGB's won this, Boschendal's won that, Franschhoek Cellar's done that, Brampton. Do you still own the Brampton brand, by the way?
Yes, we do.
Do you?
Very definitely.
I judged the Cabernet Challenge at last week in Cape Town, and your Brampton Black Rock, is it called?
No, Roxton Black, yeah. Stellenbosch Cabernet. Yeah.
It got one of the top scores, so I'm sure you'll be hearing from Celia soon about that. It was absolutely delicious. And you've somehow managed to go through the last 35 or 40 years with ease. But I know that you haven't always had somebody to bless you when you sneeze. It hasn't always been that easy. What do you say to kids now who are trying to be a Tim Hutchinson in the liquor industry, more really the wine industry, but you've done both, so tell us for both.
Well, I think it is a long-term play. I mean, as we talk, we I've got a project in the Helderberg that I'll share with you, but, already I've secured over 80 hectares of vineyards. But I mean, as we talk, 2 farms, Klein Helderberg and Helderberg Kloof, which are about 60 hectares. We're busy digging up diseased vines with leaf roll, replanting them. It's 6 years before we start seeing our first fruit. That sums up the long-term play. It's probably 9 or 10 years before it's delivering top-end Cab Bordeaux varietals and Chardonnay. So I would say you've got to have a long-term plan. And the problem in the wine business is that I think especially the wealthy, it is a trendy, nice industry to be in, but it's a very tough business. 60% of farmers theoretically don't break even if they were trying to get a return on their property. And everyone, the wealthy, buy great vineyards, great rootstock, build a fancy winery, get a great winemaker. And for me, if I did something right, I understood the other end of the scale better. That once you've made it, you've got to sell it. You have to have a route to market. You have to have trade relationships locally and globally. And those you don't build overnight. I look at, and a lot of the big distribution businesses globally are family businesses around the world. And, now I built the relationship with the father. The chap who's running the business now was running around in shorts, pushing a dinky car when I first started meeting his father. But it is about relationships. So, I think you've got to have a clear plan, but the success rate in the wine industry is not high.
It's not high. I think one of the other things that I really do need to tell everybody is that for as long as I've known you, you get up earlier in the morning than most of the people I know in the industry. You're in your office most mornings before most people have got out of bed. And you work damn hard. I think that might be a little trick to your luck and your success. Do you think so?
Yeah, I've always said to the staff, look, when you start working harder than me, give me a call. There's also no status. There's no status in the business. We have very flat structures. And I think the other one is, I've been pretty fearless. I mean, acquiring the Boschendal wine business was way ahead of my station in life. The recent deal,
it was huge. And while we're speaking about,
when I first got into the industry, I used to look at the backs in awe. Sydney Back and Michael Back. Now we own the back business and have a relationship with an amazing family. So we've been very blessed. But it's about doing the basics right. We're not show ponies. You're not going to find me on this show listing out all our awards. They're nice to have in the bank. They maybe reassure the winemakers that they're on the right track. And it's quite gratifying that international and local judges are acknowledging the fact that all our work in the vineyards with viticulturalists and in the cellars are starting to pay dividends. But we certainly don't plaster our walls with awards.
Well, I know you don't, which is another reason why I contacted you for today's interview, because I am going to brag about you. Because I know you won't. You know your oats for breakfast and humble pie for dinner. We know that. So I'm going to brag about you because I've got a whole list of awards and things that happen here. Amongst them, Mundus Vini in Germany, Best South African Producer. I mean, that is a huge award to have received. Congratulations. It's just, didn't you just want to rush out and shout from the rooftops that day?
Well, it's our second year running with that award, which makes it even better.
I know. So you must have wanted to celebrate a little bit about that. Did you celebrate with your guys?
Yeah, I guess we had the extra glass of wine, but yeah, the problem, Carrie, is our premium strategy. It's a tough call. Going premium, you're putting more stock into barrel. You holding your wine back a lot longer. If you look at our top end bubblies, 5 years on the lease. You've got to have a friendly bank manager when you're taking that route. But
well, I was going to say the next thing that I wanted to get onto is that not only have you shown massive perspicacity when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, because you have done that. You've been one of the most successful in the wine industry in South Africa with your mergers and acquisitions, and you've bought very cleverly. Boschendal being one of my, very close to my heart, as you know, beautiful, beautiful place, and you stuck your neck out, put your Watsits on the line, and you bought that brand. I mean, it's just gone from strength to strength. And it's now, in fact, let's brag about Boschendal quickly before we go on to the next. Boschendal just won an award as well. Tell me about that.
Well, it was one of the international tourist publications monitored hashtags around wineries, where people visit wineries, social media feature visits to wineries. And Boschendal was the top winery in the world. Second was the McGill estate in Australia. But
really?
For me, the exciting thing about that, you can imagine the amount of Americans see that. I'm hoping that they're also with the dollar at where it is, we've got a lot more tourists on the way, because, we can go to offices around the world and present wines. But when they come to Boschendal under the mountains there, it's God's country. The wines taste better. They get the ambience. We've spent a lot of money in our wine cellars. But we have, as one of the Aussies said to me, he doesn't think our wines are much better than theirs, but we've certainly got better backdrops. I mean,
we've got better backdrops. Gee whiskers, we have one of the most beautiful winelands in the world. I don't know of another one that I've been to that compares, really. I mean, it is. I mean,
you look at Napa. It's not in the same league. I know it's got all the American hype, but no, we're blessed with an unbelievable setting.
We definitely are. So Boschendal was one of your big acquisitions, which I thought was extremely clever. Then, as you say, you went on Franschhoek Cellars. You bought them a while ago. There's Baxberg that you've bought. There's a massive bottling facility that you've put at Wellington. The capital expenditure that you have employed is huge. So aside from the Venus vision that you've had, you've obviously... Did you come from the Bluff, Tim?
I grew up as a little boy.
Just yes or no? Did you grow up on the Bluff?
No, I grew up in Addington. I was one street from Point Road.
Boy.
So I had Addington Beach on the one side. But I mean, I had an option. I was either going to be a lifesaver. That was if I went out the flat door left. Otherwise, if I turned right, I was going to be a pimp.
So I was going to be rude, because we still can, because we're allowed to offend each other and we're allowed to laugh at each other and ourselves. But for a little Bluff boy or a little Point Road boy, you've done a pretty smart job. Where did you learn all the numbers? Because you definitely know how to crunch those numbers.
We had to, as little guys, we had to earn pocket money. I mean, when we were 10 years old, we went down the stairs walking to the beach, and I saw an old man sitting in his garage on a little stool, and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "No, I'm having a Coca-Cola." He obviously had a bottle of Mainstay hidden behind him. But we looked in there, and he had one of those hand lathes, and me and my late brother, we started making little surfboards. It was very fashionable when you were a kid in Durban. You had to have a surfboard around your neck, and eventually we forget about using toothbrushes. We ended up with perspex and made surfboards. Plaster surfboards. We had the mini surfboard, and we were entrepreneurs at that young age. We were street smart. My silver spoon was a little rusty, but I was blessed with loving parents and a good environment. And I think I often ask the question these days: how do you teach kids who live in a privileged environment to be street smart?
Yeah,
I don't know how you do it, but no, I'm certainly not. I don't have any academic qualifications. Maybe I've just been gifted with a bit of a nose for business, but a lot of it is straight common sense. Do the basics right. Watch cash is king. But no, the wine business is, if you look at it, is not an easy business. But no, we've been very blessed. I think we would. we would certainly be the biggest premium producer in the country now.
100%. I mean, I was looking at some of these other accolades, and I see that Tim Atkin's report, which is awaited with bated breath every year on the South African wines, you got 22 wines above 90 points. That's really smart. That's really smart to do that. The bottom line really for me is that anybody knows that any brand that is associated with DGB, they can happily buy with confidence. You can put a bottle of any DGB or DGB associated wine on your dinner or lunch or breakfast table, whichever the case may be, and you know that it's going to be a winner. It's a massive achievement, because you must sit back and look at the kids now who are doing a great job of making these sensational different wines. I mean, I was chatting to Charles Back the other day, who's like you. They're two men who I just adore in the industry above all the rest. It's you and Charles Back, just such menschers. And I said to Charles as well, you must look at all of this. It's just more of the same. It's a 360 degree, because you boys have been making funny wines forever. Charles made Cinsault and Grenache Blanc and Roussanne and Marzi. You've all been doing it, and it's easy to make a barrel or two of the. It's not so easy to establish a massive multinational business with hundreds of thousands of liters of wine. How much do you produce liter-wise in your group?
Well,
annually?
If you just look at the white at Boschendal, where obviously our reds, Nicholas and those red wines are becoming big players. But we're pressing well over 500 tons just on white wine at Boschendal.
That's huge. So
the business is, in six packs, the physical six packs, we're on our way to 4.5 million cases.
A lot of work, Timothy.
But I think you talked about the drinking wine with confidence. That we regularly are getting outsiders in and our own people and tasting our wines against not South Africa, a couple of South Africans, but against the global set. I think the trouble with us South Africans, we think we're all competing with our neighbor. We're not. When we got on a shelf in Europe, the consumer's saying, do I buy French? Do I buy Italian? South Africa is one of many options, so you've got to compete with them. And look, I must tell you two things for your listeners. One is that the top-end South African wines are getting better every year, and they are as good as the best in the world. We have a wooded Chenin that you can put into a flight of French equivalent wines, and it'll come first or second. But the other thing your listeners should accept, premium wines are going to get a lot more expensive. We are selling our top-end premium wines far too cheap. And it's not that we want to improve our margins. Our costs, this year if you're running a winery, your costs have probably gone up 17%. You're having diesel, you've got generators, So, but, people are, the good news is people are drinking less, people are more health conscious, but they're drinking better, whether it's single malt whiskies or wine. So, that's our vision. Our vision is that we're going premium, and people are going to spoil themselves with better quality wine, but maybe drink less.
Tim, moving on to where the South African wine industry is at now, because you really do have to be counted as one of our top sort of industry spokesmen, I would say. Have you bought any of the farms that were sold off from Distel Group? What's your view on what's going on within Distel since the takeover by Heineken?
Well, I think they liquidated, they needed to sell a lot of those properties, and most of them have been bought by foreign investors.
I know.
We didn't look at any of those properties. You look at, like, we've got in the Helderberg farms like De Lavia, Solera, Lusoff, which are owned by families who want to live there. They want the lifestyle. but we've taken over the vineyards on a 20-year, 25-year agreement. That model works for us very well, and we have relationships with 80 odd farms, and within those farms, probably 3 or 4 vineyards in each farm. So that is our future. And if you have a premium vineyard, good terroir, and there's a lot of that around, you need a partner who's going to be in business for the next 20 years. So that arrangements worked very well for us. And we've developed some of our own brands, but, like our Friars Cove, was a niche operation. Closest
How's
vineyards to
Friars
the
Cove
sea.
going, by the way? How's it
Extremely
going?
well.
It's such a beautiful farm.
We're going to try to plant more vineyards along the seafront there. As I said, they're the closest vineyards to the sea. But also what I've done is launched a range where, the Swartland was very cool and funky. I think the West Coast is the next horizon. And we've also we've secured some very good vineyards outside of our own. And we have a great Grenache, Cinsault, a great Chenin, and a great Sauvignon Blanc, not at higher price points, but no, it's done very well. I think in our first year of that range, we sold about 16,000 cases. So, and we got it into 12 international markets. So, no, that has been a fantastic facility. And what's good about that is the huge amount that's done through the cellar door and the restaurant. And we have a partnership with the local community. And watch this space. We're looking at half the revenue from the restaurant we must plow back into the community because it is a very depressing part of the world. There's alcohol abuse, there's drug abuse, and there's no work. So we have a social responsibility there. And I think one of the most gratifying things that the success of our business has brought is how we're able to give back. We have this education truck. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It cost us 2.5 million rand, but half of it is a computer school, half of it is a library, both with teachers. And, every week we're going to these schools. The kids are learning to work on computers. And even some of the kids that started on that have now gone on to university. So it's very gratifying.
Well, you're going to have to tell them to teach you how to do Riverside and all that sort of stuff. We could send some people from the studio.
Exactly. Well, even when the school closes, we're getting their parents to come and have computer classes, and they farm workers. And then the truck driver is a very keen cricketer, so we've given him all the kit, and now he does mini cricket outside the truck while the teaching's going on. So very.
Well, that'll suit you down to the ground because you're a keen cricketer, and Graham, your son, was a fabulous little cricketer. I didn't tell everybody that aside from being sort of our South African wine hero, you're an amazing dad to 3 beautiful children. How many grandchildren do you have now?
5 at the moment, and they're a blessing because they are the last people on earth who still think I'm smart. everyone else has found me out, but not the grandkids. They still think the old boy is quite smart. I guess when they become teenagers, my IQ will halve, and then I might recover when they're about 25.
Well, that happened with our kids. I remember I became the most stupid person on earth when Jonathan was about, I don't know, from like 17 until 28. And then all of a sudden I tripled my IQ from 28 to 34. I became so incredibly clever. So I know that feeling. And you're an amazing husband. Les knows that she's shared most of your married life with me. But you've been an amazing husband. Have you still got your mum?
No, my mum passed on. She was a remarkable lady, but no, she passed on in her late 80s. When she was 60 odd, she had some cancer, and the doctor gave her 8 months. My mum was a very staunch Christian, and she said, no, I don't have cancer. We said, Mum, you do have cancer. She said, no, I don't. And 20 years later, she was still with us. So
it's amazing. Raymond, my father, who you remind me so much of Raymond, also Durban boy, Point Road boy, Didn't do quite as well as Tim Hutchinson did, but he was clever like you. And he got cancer. And Alison and Mark and I decided not to tell him. So the doctor said, your father's, he got cancer of the duodenum or whatever. And we said, okay, well, what's the story? They said, well, you can do chemo, you can do this, you can do that. We said, just stitch him up. And as you know, he lived with me for his whole life. And he came home, and we continued to party and drink and smoke and listen to music and tell jokes and have fun. And Raymond lived from 73, I think he was when he was diagnosed, until 94 with cancer. So
it's all in the mind.
Tim, where to next? What's big for DGB? If we can.
Well, we're busy with another interesting, not acquisition, but partnership that hopefully we can announce in the next month or two. But I think it's about growing our international business more. We're investing more people. I've put people, we have an American operation, but I've put people into like the West Coast, and we want the Midwest. So we're not happy. International has had a tough year or two, but we want to invest more in the international market. And, South Africa, we've got a long way to go. We're still not competing as well as the Aussies and the Italians. And that's why I'm so excited about tourism, because when people come to the Cape, they begin to understand our terroir, warm and cold ocean, meeting at the foot of Africa. They travel around, they see the mountain ranges, the influence they have on wines and weather patterns, and etc. So, tourism, I think, for us is crucially important.
Yeah, it's a very, very special place.
In our cellar doors, we doubled our turnover in the December period. So that was a lot more visitors. And could you imagine a visitor landing in Cape Town now with pounds and dollars in his pocket? He must laugh at our wine prices.
He just has to raid his kiddies' piggy bank and come out for a 6-week holiday. It'll be fine, won't it?
Yeah. But I think, funny enough, everyone is a bit depressed at the moment. But I do think the one thing that we can proudly hold our head high is our wines in the international market. We used to be such big players in mineral exports, but we've fallen behind the chart there. But, the one South African thing you find around the world is wines. We've got like Mrs. Ball's chutney and Omar's rusks, but they don't travel. Wine travels. Boschendal's now in 72 markets, so you can go to a lot of countries and you're very proud to find South African wines being drunk.
Yeah, I think wine is certainly one of our most effective ambassadors, and people like you and me have a duty of care to make sure that as many people as possible know about it. Tim, what's on your table? If I say to you, what's your favorite baby from all of your stables, what would you choose to have tonight? You can change it tomorrow or next time.
You'd expect me to say one of our top-end reds, Black Angus or Grand Shiraz. I've got a soft spot for our 1685 Boschendal Chardonnay. I also like a good Chenin. The Courier from Old Road is a very nice, easy quaffing wine, but a bit unfair for me to say because I've got 12, 13 different winemakers, all very passionate, so it's not cool for the boss to select one wine ahead of another, but they and we empower them. They're their wineries. They do the styles. And we allow them to also experiment. So no, I probably like a nice Chardonnay. My wife Leslie doesn't drink white wine, so I do share a red wine with her often. But 1685 Chardonnay would be a special wine. And the new one in our stable now, the Smuggled Vine Chardonnay from Baxberg, I saw it. You probably saw it won a top international Chardonnay award in France. That's a good drinking wine. But all's good, I guess.
Well, I tell you that for my money, and I drink lots of wine, I normally start tasting early in the morning and I'm still tasting late at night. And for me, your Old Road series is just, it honestly knocks everything else off the charts for me most of the time. It never fails to impress. And then, of course, there's Boschendal, which I love so much. And I'm going to force you one day, before you and I both die, to invite me back to Boschendal. I want to go to Lanky Dock and swim in Blowgat. And I want to have a picnic under the trees. And I want to go and stay in Rhodes Cottage. And I want to do all those things that I did when I was 30. Should we do that?
Yeah, cool idea. I never forget Jenny Cruis Williams once on 702, and I know you were great friends. But someone phoned and they were talking about one of the best meals they've ever had. And hers was a dinner in the Boschendal Manor House with a raging Cape winter storm outside. And a fire on the go, drinking a good Boschendal Cabernet. And it was that was a nice memento,
Oh no, it was gorgeous. In those days, Lanoy used to have that cursive writing on the label, the Boschendal Lanoy. We had to sell millions of bloody bottles of this stuff, and pretend that it was coming out of a boutique winery. So Margaret Leroy, who was just the most wonderful marketing director, she was gorgeous. And she said, girls, you have to get out there and you have to sort of preach the gospel according to Boschendal. She lived, ate, drank, slept, walked, talked Boschendal. She loved it. And
who's just turned 100 is Henry Kissinger.
My God, is Henry still alive?
Yes, he just turned 100. And if you remember, Henry Kissinger visited Boschendal once when Michael Olivier was there. And he said, in his autobiography, he said the Malva pudding was one of the best desserts he'd ever had.
That Malva pudding.
And he's 100, yeah.
Judy Dyer. Oh, well, you'll have to send them the recipe for the Malva pudding and tell them to make it for his birthday. Judy Dyer used to run the restaurant, and she's still a very good friend of mine from the Boschendal days. I think she's on her own now, but she went and worked for Julio Bertrand, and she worked for Oldenburg Vineyards, which is also beautiful at the moment, not far from where you are. But it really does hold a very, very special place in many, many people's hearts, not just Boschendal, the whole of DGB. You're a legend and I love you, and thank you for taking time to come and chat to me, Tim.
I really appreciate the invitation. Thanks so much.
Anytime. We should definitely make a date 3 times a year.
Right, yeah. And you've got an open invitation to Boschendal. Just find a gap in your diary and let's set it up.
I'll phone you. Thank you, Tim. Love to all the Hutchinsons and
thank you.
What you're doing. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Right, have a good one. Cheers. Bye.
Another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.